All right, Sean here with BlueRidgeSilverhound. We have the midweek edition of the Pocket Change Market Report for October 5th, 2022. You're surely not going to want to miss this. There's some pretty insane coins that we're going to talk about this week that were found out in circulation, obviously, because that's what we like to talk about here. But the Pocket Change Market Report is generally made up of recent, I would say within the last 48 hours of eBay activity of coins that were found going through coin rolls. They were maybe found in massive amounts of change, breaking open, your kids' piggy bank, that sort of thing. But also something to consider that some of these coins were probably cherry-picked at a local coin shop or show. Any which way that you could obtain these coins for what I call their raw, unattributed value, all right, are what I call cherry picks. And sometimes they have a great home as a new piece to your collection, or they can be used to make money off of. You simply flip it on the open market, to this great big universe that we call eBay land. A lot of people will be interested in some of these coins, more so than, maybe going to your coin shop, where a lot of them don't really deal too much in varieties and errors. So, again, that's kind of the gist of what I go through when I do these videos week in, week out. Another thing to also point out is that the coins are not graded at all. These are all raw. Oftentimes, it's way too expensive to send coins out to PCGS or NGC. Sometimes it's not even worth it to send it to Annex either. Anytime you have to pay some sort of expense to put these things in a plastic tomb may not necessarily be the most financially wise decision before you go ahead and sell these. So, as always, it sure is a pleasure to have you guys aboard. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's content. You should do that 100% of the time anyways, because I'm asking nicely. Yes, I am. Plus, you're getting all sorts of free content. You guys don't have to pay a membership or anything like that, or a Patreon, to even become a part of the channel experience. So let's go ahead and see what people have found and what people have sold. Thanks again. All right, we're going to kick it off with a piece of currency. This $1 bill right here is quite subtle, but if you look close enough, you'll see that the overprint, which is generally made up of the serial numbers and the district seals and a few other elements, are a little bit misaligned, and you could really tell the misalignment of a printing of a note, respective to how they're kind of mated up to each other. Take, for example, the green district seal that you see here on the right side. It is way off center compared to where the word 1 is on the first print. So you definitely have a deviation. Maybe the sheet was slightly tilted a little bit prior to that overprint application. But this is a really good note. And, people are finding these on even some of the newer 2017 issues. This particular one is a 1995, of course, so it's a few years old. It was probably discovered really early on. The note is in phenomenal shape. I would say, and probably go out on a limb and say, it's a crisp, uncirculated note right out of a BEP pack or a strap or something. This particular one ended up selling for $36.20 with 19 total bids. So there was definitely a little bit of a need here in the market. A few people were battling it out to try and obtain this one. The next one that we have here is a coin that people have been finding with pretty good success. And I'm happy to say that this is a really, really epic find. Clockwise rotational error. Usually it's not supposed to be like that. You flip the coin over, you're supposed to have a design that's perfectly oriented up and down. And when you come across things like this, I mean, that you're pretty much counting the money, right? It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Brand new coinage here, ladies and gentlemen. And people have been finding these rotational die errors within the last 2-3 years. So I don't know what's happening at the Mint. Of course, we were just through a pandemic period, and I'm pretty sure that quality control wasn't as good as it was years prior to that. So this is a really genuine opportunity to find some really neat errors. This particular one ended up selling for $35 with a total of 5 bids. So this one is also in a traditional auction format. The next one that we have here is quite a familiar piece because it was sold by TLC Varieties, one of the main sellers of these 1972 DDOs. This one is the FS102. Very, very attractive looking coin. I'm sure he or she had found quite a few of these in BU rolls at some point. I mean, that's a dream in itself, is to find some of these brilliant uncirculated rolls floating around out there. There can't be too many of them left available. But here's a little bit of a close-up of all of the goodness. The date showing, its fair share of doubling. Liberty is really, really nasty. But let's not forget the motto as well. In God We Trust is one of the more stronger doubled areas of the 102. This particular coin, great googly moogly, $156.45 later with 20 bids, which is strange because TLC normally just likes to put these coins up as a buy it now feature, but this one was organically bid up to the amount that I just talked about. And again, that's with 20 total bids. There was a lot of activity. These things will be continuously collected, and they are quite popular for years to come. Speaking of 1972, this is not any of the aforementioned doubled dies that you could find. However, this one right here is a broad struck error. You can just tell the coin's a little bit bigger. You have some of that extra space between the motto "In God We Trust" to the edge of the coin. How a broad strike error occurs is that the collar that holds the coin in place is not engaged at all. All right, so maybe there was a malfunction of sorts, but when there's no collar, the metal flow during the striking process has to go outwards. It's like pressing your thumb in a ball of Play-Doh. It expands out and gets bigger. So this one right here ended up selling for $18. I know there are a number of people that collect these specifically by date, and I am almost assured that this is probably one of the more tougher dates. Now this one's neat here, commonly found on much older Lincoln wheat cents. This one has kind of like a tiger striped appearance to it, and it fits. The more appropriate terminology for this is either a woody. It also looks like wood graining, but also it is an improper alloy mix. The earlier compositions of these had a little bit of aluminum or tin that was added to the copper, and sometimes they just really didn't do a very good job at mixing these two alloys together. It's almost like oil and water in some regards. But this is kind of like the final result where you don't have the proper mix of both of those together prior to when the strip was laid out and subsequently punched for these planchets. This particular one right here sold for $22.09. That's with 19 bids. Who would have thought, right? I mean, this is Woody Lincolns are pretty well collected. We have one on our panel, our live coin Q&A panel. Frank Coin Dragon specializes in these coins, and he has amassed quite a nice collection. So this is again another coin to look out for. Again, more so from the 1950s and earlier is where you're going to find these. Now here's one that we've come across on a few occasions. This is a Jefferson Die Cap. All right, so the die cap is another coin that actually it was stuck to the obverse die, or the hammer die in this case. It's almost like the die was wearing a hat, and after producing so many strikes with this cap on there, the cap will eventually get super thin, razor thin in some instances, where it begins to buckle and wrinkle and fold onto each other. But a late stage, the die cap is very thin. The actual devices of the die is pressing through the very razor thin die cap and onto the coin. So that's why you're able to see some remnants of the letters like Liberty and God We Trust. The seller mentioned that this one looked to be a 2000 Denver. date on there. This one right here sold for $37.99. These always seem to sell for between 30 and 40 bucks. That's kind of like a very comfortable level that these have been going for. Really neat coin, but if you find one where there's a really mushy strike on the obverse and a very nice hammered strike on the reverse, this is something that you might have. Nothing too crazy here, just a really good looking Roosevelt dime, off-center struck. 1990D is the date on this one. There's a few collectors. I wouldn't say they're as, deep and wide as a Lincoln Cent off-center collection. Folks, again, do collect these by date, so this one generally would be a tougher date because it has a Denver mid-mark on there. You just don't see too many Denver off-center strikes out in the wild. This one sold for $24.69 with 4 bids. Quick little check-in on one of my favorite easy varieties to find. This is a 2000P Lincoln Memorial cent that exhibits the wide AM reverse. So this is a variety that's well known in the community. Not overly expensive or rare. These are still being found in decent amount of numbers. That supply and demand are A-okay. But you can see the considerable gap between the letter A and M in America. That's what you're going to want to look for. This was a different reverse die than they were supposed to use. So you could find these from 1998 to 2000. Of course, we know the 1999 is the rarest of the three, and that particular coin is worth a lot more money these days because of the run-up in varieties, and especially some that just don't see the marketplace that often. This one right here sold for $7.50 with 4 bids. Our next piece of currency comes in the way of this 1995 $5 bill. Again, we have more misalignment. The actual third print on this one, which is the serial numbers and seals, are all perfectly placed respective to the size of the note. All right, it's that first initial print that's way off. All right, so that's the just the main design, base design of the note. The back is what I would consider okay. It's not the most centered looking back on there, but the back was not misaligned at all. This is within tolerances. This one right here is sold for $112.98. Someone did pick this up as a buy it now listing. Here's another Roosevelt dime, this time a little bit of 90% silver love. We have a 1964 with an apparent curved clip planchet. All right, so again, not a rare error to come across, but this is just a really nice premium example. Someone that needs this for a date set, they'll look at this and either replace their existing 64 with this one because it's that nice, or people will just pick this up because they need an example of this error. This one sold for $23, so that's a considerable amount of premium above and beyond what silver meld is for this. Here's a 1944 Lincoln wheat cent. This one, you could make the argument is either off-center or just an uncentered broad strike. When they're off by about 5%, it's really kind of negligible. It's a decent looking coin, save for a few carbon spots in certain areas, which by the way is kind of like a terminal corrosion of sorts. It's not ideal for a collector of these, but when one comes around that's pretty decent, they'll make concessions to own something like this until a better one comes along. This one right here is sold for $79.99. Once you get beyond the memorial backed reverse Lincolns and into the wheat cent designs, these tend to get a little bit more expensive, and then the further back you go in the age of these things, they get even more wildly expensive. While not a particularly attractive coin with the carbon spotting, it's the date. The date, it's World War II era, and it's in pretty decent shape outside of the spots. Here's one that we haven't talked about in quite a while. You guys remember these? 2021 is the date on the Lincoln Shield cent here, with the famous K3 to K7 retained cud, just traumatic terminal state crack and cut and interior die break and all that great stuff. This is such a cool coin. And again, another possibility out there in circulation because the date is still so very current and new. This one right here sold for $270.60 with 31 bids. I wanted to mention real quick that the coin does exhibit a little bit of circulation. It's not a premium example. I can even tell that there's a few fingerprints on the face of the coin. I might even see a little bit on the reverse as well. So still a very respectable amount of money, but these have kind of waned a little bit due to the newer American women quarter errors that we've seen, especially that Wilma Mankiller, which has kind of taken the collecting world by storm, sort of, on these things. So when, one coin kind of gets discovered, it leaves all the other ones in the dust a little bit. Still, $270 is a very rich amount of money for this coin, and I would take that all day long. Speaking of which, here's one of the aforementioned American Women quarters. This is the Maya Angelou reverse 2022 Philadelphia minted piece right here, with one of the newest discovered doubled dies that you can find on this. So far, the only attributed doubled dies have all been on the Maya Angelou, and they all involve that little earring that you see there that she's wearing. This one has the doubled earring. As of this taping, there are two other Variety Vista attributed examples. There's a VDDR number 2 and a number 3 as well. And we helped that person get their coins attributed the same way that we got the person attributed with this one as well. So we kind of had a little bit of a hand in, kickstarting the variety attribution process with these folks. Which I'm glad. I mean, that's awesome to be a part of that. And then now people are making some money because there's an actual attribution number that people can tie to these. This is the VDDR number 1, by the way. This one ended up selling for $24.99. It's going to be a very popular coin for years to come. I would imagine that people are going to be collecting each of one of the varieties. So far, there's been 3 attributed, and we're bound to see more as time goes on. All right, so our big coin of the week has the littlest feature on it. And what do I always say about these bicentennial Washington quarters? The drummer boys get so much heat packed right on it when there's a desirable error type on there. Now, you guys see what I'm seeing, right? You have a pretty nice cut die break over the word United on the reverse that goes from the edge to the couple letters, the E and D in United. I mean, at first glance, it looks tiny, but there aren't too many cut die breaks for this particular date. And, also to kind of compound on things, it's a Denver minted coin. So there are a few cuts that I am aware of on Philadelphia minted coins, but this is one of the first ones I've seen on a Denver. Now, the price will blow your mind. This one ended up selling for $499. I ended up just, upgrading it to $500 on the thumbnail. But check this out. Yeah, that's going to leave a mark. You can see it right there at the bottom of the coin, the raised bubble on there. That's a piece of the die that had fallen off. So when it strikes other coins, it's going to fill in that area and create a raised blobby device, is what I call it. $499 for something so small. Some of you are going to ask, well, that sounds ridiculous. Is it worth it? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of. When there's only a few of something, that's going to obviously ratchet up the demand for one of the most popularly collected modern commems that are out there in circulation today. So I would just, little word to the wise, look at every single one. Look for those rotated die errors. There's been a few of those as well. Look for major die cracks and breaks and stuff. Die chips, rim clips, all sorts of stuff. Even misaligned dies. There's been 1 or 2 of those as well. On any of the bicentennial coinage, the quarter is the main one. And these are all quite expensive when you do come across them. Well, speaking of Wilma Mankiller, here's one of the first ones we're talking about today. This is the just the obverse cud with the strike through on both sides. So there was obviously some sort of like grease, right? Maybe the reverse die got changed out after the die had split and just about cracked apart. So this is a really cool coin that can be found today. It's a 2022 Philadelphia. So for you folks there on the East Coast, there have been examples that have been found actually all over the place. I thought these were just, kind of concentrated in the southeast region of the U.S., but there was I think it was either this one or the other one we're talking about that was actually sold in New York. So, these are starting to pop up in other areas of the U.S. This particular example sold for $280.60 with 2 bids. Very nice. And here's one, good old forgotten Homestead quarter, 2015 Philadelphia. This coin is 7 years old already, but this is the famous double pump handle. You can see the pump handle in the window pane area there. This is referred to as the WDDR number 4 in the Wexler's files. This one right here is a really solid seller at $21.99 is what it's sold for. Again, one to look out for, but there were also a bunch of other double dies for this date, so make sure you're looking out for them. Here's a simple little curved rim clip on the 1965 Washington quarter. The coin looks really nice, by the way. I would say it's probably a mid-state example. And this one right here sold for $24.75. Now, the most impressive piece of currency that I've talked about in probably about a year has to be this $20 bill. 1974 is the series date on there, and yeah, I mean, what do you see that's wrong with it? I mean, it's not as if it's obvious, right? The third print was inverted. It's applied inverted on the sheet, which is crazy. I've seen a few of these, and they're normally in a graded holder already. This one, however, sold raw. And I'm like, it's a real head scratcher. I'm like, wow, this thing should have been in a PMG or PCGS currency holder by now. But I'm willing to bet it's going to head in that direction. This is a mega find right here. This one is sold for $1,227. I kind of think that that's a bargain, because once this thing goes into a graded holder, wow, it'll probably make this thing worth about $2,000 easily, because that's like one of the things that people care about. The note is actually very clean and very nice. I'm holding my opinion that this is a uncirculated note and probably more of an AU or about uncirculated note. It's kind of hard to tell. If it has a faint centerfold, then it's an AU. If it doesn't, then, probably a low-end, crisp, uncirculated. But, man, what a gorgeous piece. It's always nice to see one of these type of errors that should be graded but not sell for this kind of money, which helps support my reasoning of how you don't need to grade everything that you come across. This is one of those premier examples. Now, here's the other one, and I'm kind of a little bit heartbroken. I'm a little bit kind of jealous because I wish I would have found this. This was a quick snaggalicious buy it now listing. This, of course, is the double-sided error that you can find on the Wilma Mankiller. You guys are not going to believe how much this thing sold for. $225. When we've seen every other example of the double-sided cud retained cud die break of this coin sell for in excess of $500 to $600, $700. This was an absolute steal. Sometimes people just don't know what they have. They know they're valuable. They end up throwing them up on eBay and as a buy it now, and then they sell within minutes. Then you're left kind of wondering, okay, did I sell this thing for too cheap? Yeah, this one went way too cheap. This is an easy 2 to 3x value here. I mean, these are going to be neat coins for the upcoming future, especially as the U.S. Mint kind of figures out their quality control stuff, which is going to come really soon. So, yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. These things are still out there for the taking. Might as well, punch your ticket and find one for you too. Now, this is just an overall really clean-looking 1945 Denver. You can see the big Denver mint mark on the reverse of the coin there, which means this is a manganese silver wartime alloy coin. Beautiful, but also know that there are a bevy of repunch mint marks that you can find on just about every date of these. Brian Rybar, who's the seller of this coin, he's like one of the big nickel attributors as well. Ended up selling quite a few of them here in the last few days, for like 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. This particular example sold for $25.91. Beautiful BU specimen. And again, here's another 1972. This time it's the FS101. Kind of hard to miss it. The doubling is second to none. It's one of the strongest that you will encounter ever on this date. But yeah, coins and cards making it happen with a really nice mid-state brown example. This one sold for 350 bones with 41 bids. I love his auctions. Have I said that recently? Coins and cards, again, bucking the trend. You don't need to grade any of this stuff. They all speak for themselves. And, it's a true injection of nice raw coinage that you could get at what they're worth, outside of a holder. Now, this one's really cool. I wish the pictures were a little bit better, but we have a Kennedy half dollar with what looks to be a lot of stuff going on the front of the coin. It's a 1983 P, Philadelphia minted, which makes sense. But this one has some really major clashing. Just take a look at the clashing on these areas here in front of Kennedy's profile. And then, of course, on the back of his neck, and right above the words "We and Trust" in the motto. This thing is nuts. I mean, the perfect scenario for this is, yeah, this person found it coin roll hunting, right? Because that's where a lot of these are being found. But this is like one of the strongest examples of clashing that I've seen on a just good old business strike Kennedy half dollar in some time. There's even a little bit on the reverse because of how busy the reverse is. You don't see nearly as dramatic clashing here. This particular coin ended up selling for $53.99 with 2 bids. Impressive, great sell even in its current condition. I mean, the coin is pretty well worn and circulated, but what a heck of a find. Worth more than any 90% silver or 40% silver that you could find in these Kennedy half dollar rolls. So we're down to our last couple listings here, and they're all pretty awesome. We have what looks to be a full bank box of Lincoln cents, but not just any Lincoln cents. This is actually a full box of 2009p formative years Lincolns. This is where Lincoln's sitting on the log and reading a book. You guys are familiar with that. So this is this represents a huge foot in the door to look for some of those really cool doubled thumb varieties. There's like dozens, if maybe over 100 of them. This is a really cool kind of like time capsule find. The cool news is, guys, and I have a feeling that the seller is going to get another sale sometime today once I announce this. This person has one more box available. He had 2 available. He has 1 more to go. What's even also cooler is that this is a box from the first day release ceremony of this particular release. All right. So it's the LP2 is what they call it as well for the reverse designation. But this is such a really neat listing. $199.95 was the sale on this. Worth every bit of it. I've seen these probably about a year or 2 ago sell for $300-400. So this is kind of a discount. There aren't too many of these available out there anymore. But for those of you that really like looking for varieties and revel in finding some of these beautiful doubled thumb coins, this is the one to get right here. Second to last coin, of course, we got to talk about a little bit of Tuskegee Airmen love here. This is, of course, the amazing burning building strike through, one of the nicer ones, of course. There is a little bit of a close-up. These are called field-restricted strike-throughs, where the feeder finger actually pushes around a piece of grease on the die, and they come up in different shapes. It's just on this one, it's right on the building, so it's perfectly placed to give it that moniker. This one sold for $80.95. Beautiful example, too. And then finally, we're going to end it off on something that a lot of people will look at and say, well, I think that might be damage. And a lot of people will look at it, will think that. All right. This one, however, based off of what I'm seeing, was sold as either a blowhole or a fissure. All right. So what that is it's a defective planchet. This is kind of like the end of the strip where it's a little bit rough and ragged. Will end up looking like this once a planchet's been punched out of that strip. So this one right here, of course, is a 85D copper-coated zinc-in, so you do have exposed zinc on the reverse. Not the prettiest example, but this one is out there. What separates this from an actual damaged coin is that you don't have the curved-in punch-through of the metal around the anomaly right there. It really does truly look like a defective planchet. $145.60 is the going market. That's like pretty money on a very ugly coin. This is not my personal favorite type of error, but people do love these. And, in case you guys do find it, you know for certain that it is a defective planchet, fissure type of clip or ragged type of style blowhole, then, you probably will be doing really well when you sell it. But that's going to go ahead and do it. Nice little group of 25 coins and lots here for you. Hopefully this video will give you a little inspiration to go out there and do a little hunting. Really punching your ticket, going out there, asking the bank tellers and kind of getting down on your hands and knees and begging for some coin boxes. Because we are coming up to the holidays. That's what people do, right? You gotta play to play. You gotta play to win. Or something. I don't know. I'm a little lost for words on a Wednesday. So that's going to go ahead and do it. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. You guys take care. Happy hunting. And I will see you on the next coin video or TikTok video. So long.